Welcome to Boxing During Dinner, episode 34, and we would like to thank Herman Cain for lending us his apartment.
That was actually probably the funniest thing you've ever said on this show.
This is Herman Cain's apartment. This
Red,
is his red couches.
Yeah, red leather sofa. You know, got
the ladies' man.
Yeah, the glass table.
He even keeps this GQ magazine. There's an article here: a slice of pizza with Herman Cain.
All right.
So, apparently that's...
he wants to read about himself. Yeah, thanks for having us here,
for supporting Boxing During Dinner. But obviously we're Boxing During Dinner. This is episode 34. David and Armando. And David was at the Miguel Cotto Margarito fight. He's sporting his Miguel Cotto shirt.
There it is.
Miguel Cotto victorious. 10th round TKO over Antonio Margarito, as predicted here on Boxing During Dinner.
Yep.
And David, something that I said prior to the fight, and I think it was proven early on, was that Margarito's eye was not 100%. In fact, I'll go on the record as to say that I don't think that that there's any way possible that doctor could have found that eye to be 100%, because he did not stop one left hand from Cotto from round 1 through round 10.
You had said that to me the other day. I tend to think that Margarito's inability to stop the left hand has more to do with his diminished skills than it does with the eye. If you look at in the third round when Margarito's eye is already cut, the cut is actually, the swelling starts to come from the top of the eyelid above the eye, which is not where the injury was in the first fight where he got injured against Manny Pacquiao. The fact of the matter is Margarito is a shell of his former self. Maybe Cotto is too, to an extent, but Cotto is still maybe 85 to 90% of what he was, and Margarito is nowhere on the register of what he once was. But the fact of the matter is, Cotto went to work. He tore up that eye exactly like he said he was going to. And anybody who's complaining, and there are a lot of people complaining about this stoppage, they need to stop it. That was a good stoppage. In fact,
it was a great stoppage.
It could have come a couple rounds earlier. And
I would have stopped it a couple of rounds earlier.
His eye had been completely shut for at least 2 rounds before that. Cotto won this fight clearly, convincingly, and revenge is finally his.
No, and his eye started showing damage from the second round on. And David, not only the fracture that he had against Pacquiao, but the cataract surgery, it affects a person, it affects a fighter. And I'm not going to name any names, but there was a former world champion who I was working with at probably like a few years ago on a telecast. He had a similar eye injury, cataract surgery, and he told me himself he couldn't see well out of that eye. He would be walking down the hall and he'd smack himself against fire hydrants, against medicine cabinets, because he couldn't see from that eye. And I think Margarito suffered a similar injury and was suffering from the same effects, because I'm not saying that the eye caused these left hands to come in from the time it started swelling. I just think even before the fight, he couldn't see well. I mean, you could probably tell that I'm holding up 2 fingers, but how well does he see those 2 fingers?
Yeah, that's a really good point too. And is anybody going to really know? Well,
no, we won't know. And Margarito's too proud to say anything, anything else. And a lot of people, David, have taken this fight into controversy. Like you said, the Mexicans are pissed that they stopped the fight.
Yeah.
Also, the Cotto people are like, all right, this proved that he had the plaster and the gloves when he fought Miguel Cotto. Now, watching this fight, and I know last week I said that I did believe he had the plaster and the gloves. Looking at this fight and seeing the angles that Margarito was coming in, he was coming in with those uppercuts he throws, and he was landing on Cotto. Mm-hmm. Maybe he didn't have the same effect because it's 4 years later, and like you said, he's a diminished fighter. But it just led me to think that maybe he didn't have the plaster and the gloves, or maybe he did. We'll never know. I'm going back a little bit on my word, but Margarito was getting to Cotto at some points of the fight.
He was, and for anybody who wants to assume that this victory somehow proves that Margarito had hand wraps, no, that's an isolated incident. That's by itself. If you can't really compare the 2 fights. Cotto fought a better and a different fight this time around than he did the first time. Margarito landed far less shots. That also has a big, impact on why Cotto doesn't look the same. We're never going to know, even though everybody's suspicions are mine are rock solid that Margarito had, plaster in his gloves in the first fight. That's a separate incident, and you can't really compare the way Cotto looked afterwards to make that judgment one way or the other.
No, and Cotto looked great, and he proved that he still has some left in the gas tank. Mm-hmm. And speaking of Cotto, David was in New York. There was a post-fight press conference, and here's what Miguel Cotto had to say.
the energy I had, the training camp, and all the chemistry with the whole team was the real difference in this game.
Hey Miguel, did you feel, there was so much made about the hand wraps, did you feel there was any difference from his punching power last fight to this fight?
I don't know, it was the adrenaline of the heat of the fight. I didn't feel anything in the last fight, in this one, but my face now is a lot different than the last time. No, I don't have anything to talk to him, He has his own life. I have my own here. He can keep with his life. I'm going to keep with mine.
So yeah, David, that's what Cotto had to say after the fight. You could tell that there was no love lost between these two guys after the fight.
Not.
Like you said, you were wondering what the hell was Cotto staring at after the fight.
Yeah, I was up in the stands looking at the fight, and because of the way the angle was, I couldn't see where Cotto was staring, but you could tell he was staring in one direction. And a friend that I was with said he's staring at Margarito. And which is something that might have been evident on the telecast, but of course we didn't have Jim Lampley up in the stands, and it became very evident later that for what appeared to be an eternity, Cotto was staring coldly, maybe 5 or 6 feet away, right into Margarito's eye, singular. He really only had one at that point, and it was a chilling statement, but it was a Miguel Cotto that we had never seen, and as far as fighting goes, and Miguel Cotto we haven't seen in 3 to 4 years.
And we got to give Margarito props because he showed balls in this fight. I mean, if he couldn't see before the fight, during the fight, it takes a hell of a man to go 10 rounds against a world-class fighter like Miguel Cotto. But speaking of Margarito, then after the fight, he comes out and says Cotto still hits like a girl. And, you lost the fight, just retire, take care of that eye. He has kids, he has a family. Keep your eyesight, man. Ask Stevie Wonder if how much he misses his eyesight. So, or Andrea Bocelli or something. But don't take that for granted. I mean, it's a tough sport. If Miguel Cotto hits like a girl and he did that to your, and he did that to your eye after Pacquiao damaged it, imagine what somebody that doesn't hit like a girl is gonna do to your eye. So
yeah, seriously,
just get out of the game right now. And Kieran Mulvaney, a friend of the Boxing During Dinner, a friend of the program, he actually hung out with David after the fight.
A lucky guy I was. Kieran Mulvaney, thanks again for always being a big fan of ours as well. In return, for those of you who don't know, Kieran's written some of the best pieces about any fight that you're going to read about for HBO and ESPN. I had a chance to talk to him outside of the bar after we had a drink, and here's what he had to say about the Cotto Margarito fight. We're outside the Flying Puck Bar and Grill with Kieran Mulvaney of ESPN and HBO fame and Polar Bear fame. Kieran, tell us a little bit about your thoughts tonight on Cotto Margarito.
I thought Miguel Cotto looked great. I thought he looked as good as he's done for quite some time. Antonio Margarito was a shell of a fighter. There were a couple of times there in about the 4th or 5th round when I thought that maybe Margarito was going to put the pressure on him. Maybe it was going to start looking a little bit like 2008. But Cotto turned it around and he just completely dominated him. He said he was going to go for that right eye. He kept going for that right eye. That's what he did. He kept moving. He would never get drawn into a slug fight, and I thought he did very well.
And who are you interested in seeing either of these guys fight next, and or are you willing to make that prediction just yet?
Margarito should never fight again. I mean, somebody needs to step in and save Antonio Margarito from himself, because whatever else you think about Antonio Margarito, he will fight until like his limbs are cut off. He'll be like the Black Knight in that Monty Python movie, right? He'll be standing there going, okay, we'll call it a draw. But he just won't stop. Somebody needs to protect Antonio Margarito from himself. And Miguel Cotto, I don't know. He looked very, very good against Antonio Margarito. Talk of him against Floyd Mayweather, let's not do that. But you know what? He might be okay against Chavez Jr. You know what? He looked pretty strong in there. He looked sturdy. Chavez Jr. isn't much of a fighter. Maybe we could see that. I think probably that's what we're going to end up seeing.
David, and also a stellar undercard. Brandon Rios, I was impressed just because of the way he looked after having to lose those pounds and just draining himself. He looked like a dead man walking during the weigh-in. And I thought he did his job against John Murray, but you were a little underwhelmed by Mr. Rios.
Had Rios been in with a puncher, it might have been a very different result. I think Murray gave him a hell of a time. Yes, Rios came out and won the fight, and if you want to give credit to that, of course, any fighter who wins a fight deserves the credit for winning it. But I'm not impressed by Brandon Rios. I think he's very rudimentary. I think he's been matched very well, and it's a matter of time before, even in moving up to 140 pounds, I think he's going to run into some guys who are bigger punchers, and he's been facing at 135. His resume doesn't impress me, and I think he's hyped.
See, I'm still a huge fan of Brandon Rios. I think he'll do good at 140. But a guy who really impressed in this fight on Saturday night against Pawel Wolak was Delvin Rodriguez, who now they're talking about matching up with James Kirkland. He finally put the exclamation point on those 20 rounds of boxing with Pawel Wolak.
Yeah.
He won by unanimous decision. This time, the first fight was possibly the fight of the year,
which will be decided in a few weeks. It's one of
exactly.
the final 5 candidates.
And Delvin Rodriguez, David, you saw him fight up close and personal there, and you got to talk to him after the fight.
He had said back to me in the interview, you're about to see a lot of the things that I thought. So rather than have me repeat it to you, let's take it to the Delvin Rodriguez interview.
We're here with Delvin Rodriguez after his victory in a rematch against Pawel Wolak. Now, this was a very, very big difference between the first fight and the second fight. Tell us the difference and how you were able to pull this one tonight.
Well, the difference was I knew, like I said, I was stronger than him, and I could stay in there with him, and if I wanted to, I could also box him. That's what I did. I have fun in this. I boxed him, and I threw some great combinations. Every time he tried to get close to me, I was throwing at least 3 punches combination, so that made a big difference. It's a big difference when you hit somebody with 1 or 2 punches, but when you hit him with 3 and 4 at a time, there's no way that he can stay on top of you like he usually do to his opponents. He's a tough guy, man. I can't take anything away from him. If you see my right hand, right there, man. It's swollen. I caught him with just solid right hand, and I thought his guy was gonna go down, but he didn't go down, man. But I gotta give it to him on that.
So yeah, that was Delvin Rodriguez, and big things for Delvin Rodriguez. I think his fight against, if he does fight Kirkland, it'll be very interesting because Kirkland does get hit and has been down and has been knocked out. And Delvin Rodriguez, he's no bum.
No, he's definitely not. In fact, I think Rodriguez, maybe is in a renaissance in his career. Granted, he's moved up to 154 and fought the same guy twice, but it seems as if he understands that he needs to put his punches together a little bit more and then get out of the way. He's throwing good combinations, like he said in his interview against Wolak, which was the big difference, and then he got away. He's got good speed. He's got skills, and that's why a lot of people believed in him when he was a prospect a few years ago as a guy who can make a difference. Well, maybe at 154 pounds now, this is his chance to enter that loaded weight class as somebody who should be messed with.
And also on the card, Mike Jones with a victory over Sebastian Lujan. But something that got lost in the mix on Saturday night was the Abner Maris-Agbeko fight. Joseph Agbeko, the rematch. He did punch Agbeko in the balls a couple of times this time. It's way better than the 50 times he hit him in the first fight.
Yeah.
But Maris looked good. He won by decision. He retains his title. And Vic Darchinyan, it looks like the Darchinyan run is over. He's retiring. He's going to MMA. But his best days are past him, David.
Yeah, it is. And then Samuel Moreno, got to give a lot of credit to him too, because he had been mentioned previously as a possible opponent for Nonito Donaire, which would have been a real measuring stick for even him. So, to fight a guy who has been a big, force in that division for a while, it's a good win for Moreno. But Vic Darchinyan is definitely no longer, a mention in that picture as a serious contender.
And this weekend, David, Amir Khan, who I consider one of the top 5 pound-for-pound fighters in the world, even though you guys don't agree, Amir Khan's going to be fighting Lamont Peterson. What do you think about that fight?
I think it's a fight that Khan wins. I think Lamont Peterson is going to cause trouble for him along the way, but Amir Khan is too fast, too strong. I just don't see him losing this fight.
I agree, Amir Khan. And then Seth Mitchell, finally the mainstream crowd is going to get to see this guy fight.
Yeah, he's an American heavyweight. Is he going to be the next in line of guys to fall on their face? Well, a lot of people believe in him. But he's young in his career. This is an opportunity to be showcased on a televised HBO card, and I expect him to perform well.
Klitschko Mormek is off. Are you sad?
Devastated.
Nobody cares.
Nobody even knows. Had we not told you, you wouldn't have any idea.
Do you know who John Mark Mormek is? I mean, the last time I saw him, he got knocked out by O'Neal Bell. And that was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Know who O'Neal Bell is?
Exactly. O'Neal Bell, I think he's working at Walmart.
Somewhere down there.
The street. So, once again, from Herman Cain's apartment, we'd like to thank you guys for watching Boxing During Dinner. A lot of support from you guys lately, so we want to thank you from the bottom of our boxing hearts.
Shout out to our friend Sandre, who's been following us on Facebook, interacting with us. We appreciate all you guys who pay attention to us and talk to us, and this is why we're in it. We're fight fans ourselves.
And
so
also Daniel Placides, who continues to write to us. He's become like our best friend.
He's gonna have to be our correspondent one of these days.
He's gonna cover fights for us. But you go to boxingduringdinner.com. Our page is up. You can look at our videos and join us on Facebook and on Twitter.
And we'll see you next week.